Good evening. I'm Shantae Hanks, Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Housing. Thank you for joining us this evening for the RBD Rebuild by Design 60% Design presentation. As members of the Greater Bridgeport community, we are presenting these plans to you in hopes to receive your support and feedback. We look forward to receiving your comments and answering any questions you may have this evening. I will go through introductions and give you an overview of what we will be discussing here this evening, then turn it over to our design team. And at the conclusion of the presentation, we will open it up for Q&A. Next slide, please, Meg. So let's go over some housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded. A recording of this meeting will be available on the Resilient Bridgeport website as of July 16th, so in 2 days. All attendees are muted, but we ask that you enter any questions through the Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen, and we will answer the questions at the end of the presentation. Tonight's agenda will consist of, we'll start with project terms and acronyms, just in case some of the acronyms that we'll use throughout the presentation aren't familiar to you. We'll give you an overview first. We'll do the program overview, which is to meet the team, give you an idea of what we're going to be discussing tonight. And again, it is the design update for Rebuild by Design. That includes roadway improvements, stormwater park, and the pump station. And as I said, at the conclusion of the presentation, we will answer any questions you may have. However, let me point out, you do not have to wait until the end of the presentation to start typing in your questions in the Q&A box. Next slide, please. Let's go over glossary of terms first. Resilient Bridgeport. Resilient Bridgeport is a resilient strategy comprised of 2 pilot projects. Tonight, it's Rebuild by Design centric. Back in April, if you joined us, we did the Flood Risk Reduction Project, also known as NDR. Both projects together focus on protecting homes, businesses, and infrastructure in the south end of Bridgeport from chronic and acute flooding in order to foster long-term prosperity in this neighborhood. The Stormwater Park, it's an open space serving the dual purposes of passive recreational space and stormwater management. The Johnson Street extension, this is a new street connecting Iranistan Avenue and Columbia Street. Now the acronyms. I'll let you read those silently to yourself. However, the first 3 are the 3 agencies that have come together basically to make this project happen. CT-DOT is the Connecticut Department of Transportation. You'll hear us refer to this department as simply DOT. Connecticut DEEP, that's Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and we simply say DEEP. And for DOH, Connecticut Department of Housing. Now let you read the others. Give you about 10, 15 seconds to go through them. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. So the Resilient Bridgeport team, that consists of the Connecticut Department of Housing, that's DOH. We are the grant recipients and owner of the project and the program manager. Connecticut Department of Transportation, DOT is helping Department of Housing with design administration and right-of-way activities. I have mentioned this a number of times, Department of Housing, we don't actually put on 2 belts. We do have hard hats though, but we do not build, we don't construct development in affordable housing. We just provide those opportunities for developers. So we enlisted the help of our sister agency, DOT, to help us with construction and planning and right-of-way. Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP, they are responsible for flood control infrastructure ownership and maintenance on the project. So we have a trifecta of 3 sister agencies that are working on Resilient Bridgeport. And we also have WSP USA. WSP is our prime design consultant, and all 4 members of the group, actually 3, I misspoke, are part of tonight's panel to answer any questions you may have. Next slide. And now we will turn it over to our design team. We have Rich Pettinelli, that's our lead designer, to speak about Rebuild by Design.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. So this slide will just orientate us all as to where we are and where we're talking about. Here you see the two projects that make up Resilient Bridgeport. The FRRP project, which we discussed back in April, is located over on the east side of the South Bridgeport. And this area, RBD, that we're talking about is more towards the west side. It is the site of the former Marina Village housing complex. The goals of this project are to provide flood risk reduction and stormwater management and provide dry egress to the area and the neighborhood. Next slide. So the program status. So we do have our environmental documents complete. We do have a record of decision, and that goes for both projects. Final design has been initiated for both projects. They are both at the 60% design level now, and we are receiving and acting on comments on both projects. The federal grant expenditure deadline for this money is September 30th, 2023. Next. So where do we stand with the RBD design? So as we said, the RBD design is located at the former Marina Village site, and it will be a raised egress Johnson Street extension to get people to the west, or I'm sorry, to the east and to high ground. Next. We've gone over these dry egress. The components include a stormwater park, which we'll discuss, and we'll discuss each of these components in a little more detail. A pump station, and as far as stormwater goes, we are providing connection points for Seaside Village when their stormwater does get separated. Currently, we are in the continuing to revise the stormwater model for the area in accordance with the revised plans, and keep it up to date with our design. Next. So there are three components to this. The first is an extension of Johnson Street. That'll be about 866 feet running from Aranistan Avenue to Columbia Street. We do have to do some improvements to Columbia and to existing Johnson Street to accomplish that. The second is a stormwater park located south of the Johnson Street extension and about the bottom quarter of the former Marina Village site. And the third is a pump station located at the intersection of Aranistan Avenue and South Avenue, with a discharge flowing out to Cedar Creek, located at the upper left-hand corner of this picture we're looking at here. Next. So let's look at each one of the elements for this. So the roadway improvements. So as I said, we're constructing a new roadway. We're terming it Johnson Street Extension for the purposes of this design. It will extend from the intersection of Cole Street and Aranistan Avenue through the existing Johnson Street over Columbia Street. The roadway it will be elevated to provide dry egress above the 14, which is your 100-year flood elevation. Maximum elevation on the roadway tops out just shy of 16 feet. As we cross Columbia, there is about 2.5 feet of elevation that we have to put on to maintain that egress, and we'll bleed that out or meet the existing grade on Johnson Street as we travel to the east. So there's about 340 feet of work on Columbia and about 300 feet of work on existing Johnson Street. Next. So what are these roads going to look like when we're done? On Aranistan, we're not really doing a lot of work. We're going to mill and overlay, or remove the top layer of pavement and put down a new layer of pavement. That is really done to end up, so we walk away with a smooth condition, and we meld the existing work into the proposed work. So we're not changing the profile, we're not changing the elevation, we're not changing the cross section of what is currently on Aranistan. We're simply going to give a new level of pavement on it. and smooth out all the work that we're doing. Next. Now, as I said, Columbia Street, we are elevating it, so we have to do a little more work on Columbia. Columbia has two cross sections in the project area. North of the intersection with Johnson Street, existing Johnson Street, it is a one-way road with a 12-foot travel lane and an 8-foot parking lane. Again, our intent is to replace what was there. We're simply elevating it. So we will do exactly that. We'll put a 12-foot lane in and an 8-foot parking lane, and we'll have 5-foot walks on both sides with concrete curbs. The project is elevated a bit, as I said, up to 2.5 feet. So we will slope out at the ends to existing grade with a 3-on-1 slope, which is your standard slope, walkable and easily crossed. Next. So south of the Johnson Street intersection, Columbia Street is two-way, as two 12-foot lanes and one 8-foot parking lane. Again, our intent is to reproduce that. Again, just simply elevating it. So much like the section north, we're going to put back what's there. We're going to give you new 5-foot sidewalks, concrete curbs, and then grade it out to match existing grade. Once we're off of the travel way. Johnson Street extension will be a two-way lane, two-way traffic. It'll be two 11-foot lanes with 8-foot parking on both sides. Here we will put a snow shelf in, a 4-foot grass strip after granite curbs, and then we will put in 6-foot concrete sidewalks. Now here you notice there's only one embankment. That reflects the embankment going to the north or into the remaining portion of the former Marina Village site. To the south, we'll be grading into the stormwater park, which we'll take a look at later. So the grades there vary as we address different areas of that park. Next. So the vast majority of the construction activities for the road work, and in fact, for most of this project, are off of an existing roadway. They're in an open field. So we don't anticipate any traffic impacts as we construct Johnson Street extension and to a large extent the pump station. When we get to Columbia Street with the elevation and Johnson Street with the change in profiles to those two streets, there will be some traffic impacts. Both streets are too narrow to allow us to do one lane of construction, allowing traffic to operate on the other lane, and will be required to be shut down. So to do that, we will institute a detour. Visible here will be diverting traffic basically to Park Avenue, and then using the streets south of Johnson Street as connectors between Johnson and Park, so we maintain that east-west connection. While we're doing this, Johnson Street, the existing Johnson Street, will be temporarily converted to two-way traffic, since you won't be able to access it from the western intersection with Columbia. So the second aspect of the project is the stormwater park. So it's a stormwater park in that it is an area that we want to encourage people to be in during dry weather. During wet weather, as an engineer, I would call it a detention pond. It will act like a detention pond. It will take in the stormwater for a surrounding area. It will retard or reduce the peak and convey it to the pump station for ultimate discharge into Cedar Creek. The stormwater park is designed to handle and convey a 25-year storm with no increase in runoff. That's about a 6.8-inch storm. So it is a good significant storm. The drainage area contributing to it as of now, as of this design, is 13.3 acres. There is potential to increase it with changes to the existing drainage system in Bridgeport. The city can add on to the system coming into the pond and help more of the area. Right now, with the 13.3 acres, we'll be taking a peak flow of about 27 cubic feet per second and reducing it to about 9. The stormwater park is divided into a number of chambers or ponds. This is a 3-pond design. We're actually evaluating a 4th pond here. And the flow or the height in each one varies according to the amount of water coming in and the rate that we're going to allow it to pass through that chamber. Maximum flow or maximum height that we're looking at is about 10.5, which is about 3 feet higher than existing grade. The maximum time that we anticipate water taking to move through this process is about 1.5 hours. Now, that doesn't mean in 1.5 hours this is dry. The pond will hold water during a significant rain event for up to 24 hours. Every one of the chambers will have a low flow connection to the ultimate discharge, which also will have a low flow drain. The intent is not to have any water sitting in this for any extended period of time. It will act as a detention pond in that case, where we'll get water in it and we'll bring it out much more slowly. But it is not going to have standing water in it. For the discharge, water in this system will enter mostly along the eastern part, so mostly from Columbia. Some will come across Johnson Street Extension, but the majority of input is along the eastern third of this stormwater park. It flows to the west or to the left of this picture, and there will be an outlet structure there with multiple stages of outlet to handle varying storm intensities. A pipe then runs up Aranistan off of the actual road. It runs in the curb or behind the sidewalk and connects to the pump station, where it then is discharged out to Cedar Creek. Next slide. So these are some renderings of what the pond will look like, or stormwater park will look like when it's completed. There are 2 of each because we're evaluating some different schemes for this. This is a view looking from Columbia westward towards Aranistan. And as you can see, during dry weather events, this is an area that is, a yard. It's grass, and we encourage and want to encourage people to use it for recreation. Next. Now, one of the things we are looking to do, given the volume of water that we're anticipating, and the fact that this is in fact it has a dual function as a detention pond. Unlike the FRP project, this pond will see water every time it rains. So with the volume that we're anticipating, there's a potential to put in some green infrastructure, basically like a wet meadow, and these are defined by the state under various classifications depending on the water quality that you get. But there's a listing of plants and such that can be planted given the volume of water. It's called the water budget. And by using these types of plants and stuff, we actually are doing 2 things. We're, 1, polishing the water. We're removing pollutants, including suspended solids, phosphorus, and metals, as they are absorbed through the plant biofilters. And we're also encouraging a different fauna and flora to grow. So we attract some different animals and insect type things that allow some passive recreation viewing. So we are evaluating this, and it is one of the options we're looking at. Next one. So this looks the opposite way. This looks from Aranistan towards Columbia, and here we're pretty much in the middle of the pond. You can see we are going to give a public walk through the middle of the stormwater park. The intent is we want this area to be used for public access and for public enjoyment. However, we also recognize that it has that dual purpose of a stormwater infrastructure site. So this path will be relatively low. In any significant storm, the path will get wet. You will not be able to walk along it. We don't want to encourage people to be utilizing this path during events when this is more or less a detention pond. But during dry weather, we certainly do want people to enjoy the open area and use the recreational opportunities. Next. And again, here you see that we are evaluating doing a wet meadow and some different plantings in the area to provide a different environment. So the third element is the pump station. So as I said, the pump station is located at the corner of South Avenue in Aranistan. The pump station will be constructed such that the elements are above the 100-year flood. It will operate during 100-year flood. This will be a submersible pump station, much like the FRRP pump station you might have heard us talk about. The pumps will sit in the wet well or in the stormwater as it comes out. We are designing this for a maximum capacity of about 30 cubic feet per second, or 23 million gallons a day. That is divided amongst the water, stormwater coming from the stormwater park, and an anticipated contribution provided by the city of Bridgeport from Seaside Village at 2 locations. We will meet the capacity requirements for operation with 1 standby pump. There are 3 pumps in this pump station. We will meet the flow capacity requirements with 2. So 1 can be offline or under repair or something. And finally, the pump station does have a standby generator. In this case, it is interior to the building, and will be able to operate when power is down. So these are some views of the pump station. So this is looking northerly from the former Marina Village site towards South Avenue, with Aranistan on the left side of this screen. So it it is an elevated building. There's a small building attached to it and a wet well. So what we're looking at here on the left side, just south of that building, or on the lower end of the drawing from the building, that is the wet well. There will be a trash rack. That's the first element you see moving up from the bottom. That'll capture any large debris that happens to get into the system that we don't want moving through the pumps. So sticks and such get hung up there. The second thing you'll notice there are a series of 6 doors, or overhead doors, Bilco type doors, installed in the roof of this wet well. The first 3 of those are to access the pumps, and the second 3 are to access the valves. So we'll see a cross section where this comes out a little cleaner, but we don't enter the wet well or the pump station to get the pumps. You can pull them up through these hatches. Other things to notice here is the access to the yard is off of South Avenue. We don't want to have that type of traffic coming in off of Aranistan where it faces Seaside Village. We want to direct that more towards the commercial industrial aspect of South. Okay, next. So this is a view of the structure looking south on South Avenue, looking westerly. So towards Seaside Village. And as you can see, we're doing an architectural feature of it, and the access point is here on South Avenue. There is no access to the actual pump station from anywhere the public can gather. All access is secured behind the fence. Next. This is a view from the corner of Aranistan and South. So Aranistan is going off to the left of this picture and South is going off to the right. In this view, we're looking to the southeast. So we do recognize that this pump station occupies a pretty strong position in this development and in this area, and we want to make it as attractive as possible and make it make it a public area and recognize its position of strength in the development. So we're doing an overhang. This will allow some public gathering. We'll do landscaping in this area as well. It allows some public gathering. There's a bus stop here. It'll allow a refuge during inclement weather underneath that, and just offers some aesthetic elements to the design of the pump station. So these are 2 cross sections of the wet well. In both of these, the pump station, the actual structure that you saw would be off to the left of what we're seeing here. Water in these 2 drawings will flow from the right to the left. So if we look at the bottom one, which is a cross section of it, it's a vertical cut going down the wet well. You see the first element there is the trash rack. And again, we need to capture large debris before it gets into and fouls the pumps. The second element, that concrete wall hanging down, is a baffle. We need to break the velocity and calm the water down before it gets to the pump chamber. And then you could see an outline of a pump. So the pumps are sitting in the wet well. There'll be a rail system that we can use to bring the pumps up to the surface to service them. Sorry. And then the pipe discharge goes out. On the upper drawing, you can see how this works. There we have the trash rack to the right of the picture, the pumps with the access hatches dashed above them, and then the valve pit. The 3 discharge lines can connect up through what's called a manifold into one pipe, and then that will run down South Avenue and discharge through an existing outfall in Cedar Creek. Next. So this is the outfall. The gentleman in this picture is actually kneeling on the pipe. We did do an inspection of it. It's about a 32-inch pipe and in good condition. So we're pretty confident we could run, basically we're gonna push a force main through the existing pipe and have it discharge here. As you can see, there is some debris that will need to get cleaned up, and we will need to assess the outfall conditions to make sure the additional water the additional flow that we're introducing doesn't cause erosion. The second picture over on the left is just the embankment behind it. We're not anticipating having to dig that up. We're thinking we're going to push it through the pipe called jacking, and that will work. So this is a good segue into the permits that we require for the project. We will need a pre-construction notice for the outfall protection. So again, it's minor work, but we do have to evaluate whether or not the additional flow going out the pipe will cause any erosion, and we would have to provide riprap or something to protect the existing environment in Cedar Creek. We need obviously a general permit for the discharge of stormwater and dewatering wastewater. We'll need a 401 water quality certification because we're discharging there. A Coastal Management Act consistency review. Obviously, Cedar Creek is coastal. A land and water resource certification of permission. That is the permission to clean up the debris and such that is immediately downstream of that outfall that you could see in the picture. Finally, there's a potential, and we don't have the answer to this yet, that we might need a dam safety permit. Depending on how much water we end up storing above existing grade will dictate whether, in the stormwater park, that will dictate whether or not we need a dam safety permit. We continue to evaluate and monitor that and work closely with DEP to see if we qualify for this permit. Next. So where do we stand? As we've stated, we handed in the 60% semifinal design earlier this spring. We are starting permit applications as we speak. We will proceed to the 90% design, and there will be another 90% design meeting much like this to review the refinements sometime in the fall of 2021, with 100% design due in the winter of this year, towards the end of the year. Permits should be issued early next spring, early to late, and construction is anticipated to start in the spring of 2022, so next spring. We anticipate that this will take 2 construction seasons, mainly because of the pump station. So we anticipate completion in the fall of 2023. Next.
Thank you, Rich. Good evening, everybody. My name is Megan Savage. I am one of the public information coordinators with the Resilient Bridgeport project. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to let everybody who joined us know tonight that we have a few avenues to stay involved with the project and to get more information. First, you can visit our website, resilientbridgeport.com. This is the first stop for project information, and also where you can sign up to receive our email updates. Our email updates are the fastest way to hear about different meetings that we have going on, such as the one we had tonight, or other events that we might be having on behalf of the project. You can also feel free to email us or send us a comment at any time by emailing info@resilientbridgeport.com. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and send us messages or questions through those social media outlets as well. And with that, we are finished with the presentation portion of the meeting tonight, and now we will go into our question and answer session. I just want to remind everyone that at any time you can enter your questions in the Q&A window that is located at the bottom of your screen. And right now I will stop sharing my screen and ask that all of our panelists please turn on your cameras so that our attendees can view us while we answer questions. I do see that we have a couple questions already submitted, so I'll go ahead and get started. The first one is, what is the anticipated timing for the Iranistan overlay?
So the ultimate timing of the Iranistan overlay will be more definitive with the 90% when we have a better schedule. It will be towards the end of all the work. That overlay would be when we're doing the final paving on the overall project.
All right, thank you, Rich. Our next question, what impact from pump discharge to Cedar Creek on erosion? What impact from pump discharge on Cedar Creek on erosion to the walls of the creek?
So that goes towards the permit I was discussing. You know, we have to evaluate what the velocity of the discharge pipe will be, and then we will protect the outlet. It's a minor permit, but we will do additional riprap or something. So there should be no impact. Actually, just, the creek is pretty wide there. We won't be impacting the walls.
Thank you. Next question, how will buildup of trash be removed during events?
So I'll take this one too. So actually one thing I neglected to mention is there also is basically a trash rack at the outlet structure in the stormwater pond. So the water's getting to this pump station will go through 2 trash racks. Typically, you don't get an awful lot of debris flowing through that it needs to get cleaned during an event or anything. And the water really does get through this. You need an awful lot to jam up one of these. If it were to happen that there was a significant backup caused by debris, you simply would need a crew to go out there and basically rake it off. It's usually manually cleaned. Sometimes they do a mechanical one, but it just is a rake that we pull the stuff up.
Thank you, Rich. Our next question is, will there be any benefit to Seaside Village?
So this project does not do any separation in Seaside Village, but we are working with the City of Bridgeport and WPCA to accommodate the flows that they anticipate when they do the separation. So we're providing benefit to them in that their separation will now have a discharge point. There are 2, one across both streets that come out onto Iranistan, and I don't have the information right up in front of me. But we have 2 manholes that will accept their flow at elevations they've requested us to provide them.
Thank you. Next
Quickly,
question.
I'm sorry, Megan, I just want to interrupt right there. Because with respect to the community support, especially during the early stages of the project, I want to thank the owners of Seaside Village. We were mindful of the support and advocacy that they provided during those early stages. So however we could possibly benefit them throughout this project, we definitely kept that in the forefront of our mind. So I just wanted to say that before we moved on to the next question.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Our next question, where would you start on Iranistan, and will that be the sidewalks?
Where would I start on Iranistan? The Johnson Street extension is across from Cole. So that's where the connection point would be. The milling overlay is just really the immediate intersection that we'll create there. So I don't know the exact distance, but you know, within about 100 feet from end to end, I would think.
Thank you. Our next question, what is outflow pipe to Cedar Creek used for now?
It is abandoned. So it's not being used now.
Before we go on to the next question, can we circle back? That question regarding Iranistan was from City Council member Ms. Denise Taylor Moy, and I just want to make sure that we fully answered her question. And if not, Denise, please, type in a little more information, and we'll definitely expand on our answer. While she's doing that, though, Megan, you can go ahead to the next.
Okay. Are you not anticipating a head wall at the pump station outfall? I noticed existing deterioration along the bulkhead nearby. Why not extend it to stabilize that outfall land area?
The existing pipe is fine, and we're not doing any work actually in Cedar Creek other than the stabilization we would require. When we do the calculations, we will take a look. I don't anticipate needing needing anything for the outfall. That bulkhead didn't appear to be associated with the outfall. So we will continue to monitor, and obviously DEEP will have a say as to what the extent of work will be when we file for the permit. But we're not actually touching anything in Cedar Creek.
Thank you, Rich. Another question just came in. I know SHPO is a partner, but is there anticipation of archaeological assessments, burial evidence with so much ground disturbance?
So an archaeological assessment is a requirement of our agreement with SHPO under the record of decision. This one, SHPO doesn't anticipate a lot of archaeological impacts due to the numerous redevelopments that have gone on over the years.
Thank you, Rich. And our inquirer also said thank you. That is all I see here in the question window at this time. We'll give it a few moments for people to type any other questions they may have.
While we're waiting, I just want to thank the City of Bridgeport, the University of Bridgeport, Goodwin University, the Bridgeport Public Housing Authority, the folks over at the Eliza and Mary Friedman Foundation, Congressman Himes' office, the Bridgeport State Delegation, City Council members, and property owners who have partnered with us on these projects.
Looks like we may not have any more questions.
Oh, there's one. Oh. Oh, okay. So further down the street, City Council woman Denise Taylor Moy is asking about the stores that are adjacent to, or I'd say diagonal to Seaside Village. Will it affect the stores? I'm assuming she means a flooding.
We're going to be helping the flooding in the area. That's an area that Bridgeport could help with by extending the stuff up Bridgeport, up Iranistan, but we're not proposing any additional drainage in Iranistan.
It's a similar question I think we received last evening as well during the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, and how I stressed that we're doing the best that we can with the funding that we have, which was awarded primarily through HUD. So the housing piece is why we're able to do this. It's not a public works project per se. So there are opportunities that the city as a municipality could go after to do just what Councilwoman Taylor Moy is asking about.
Right. This is David, council member. We've been talking with the city and others about that for a long time, and it's beyond the scope of this project, but this project facilitates and improves the condition here. But it is a city issue, I think, Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner. But we're available to coordinate and help as much as possible, as we have been all along.
Thank you, David.
And I'd just like to add maybe here to, Rich, and you can clarify here, the work we're doing on Aranistan, whether it be the installation of the new intersection or anything like that, we may have, excuse me, pardon me. And I'm sorry, this is Brett Stark from BL Companies, liaison for DOT. There may be some impacts, temporary impacts there while we're overlaying and stuff, but any businesses will have access, maintenance, and such like that as we go through the construction period. So
yeah, the overlay is really a minor operation. It's done in a day.
We can just wait another minute or so to see if any more questions come in.
Honestly, throughout this presentation, we had nearly 40 members of the community participate. So given the questions and the nature of the questions, it sounds like we're getting a thumbs up and support from the community as we move towards 90% design of Rebuild by Design. So that's wonderful.
I think it looks like there are no further questions.
Indeed. Okay, well, I just want to thank the members of the panel for participating this evening. You have all had the opportunity to meet face-to-face the Resilient Bridgeport team. And we look forward to coming back with the 90% design in a few months. And thank you for spending this evening with us. With that being said, good night, everyone.
Thank you.